Welcome, I'm Alice Garjuk, and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. Today we're going to talk about a project that aims to enhance Ukraine's energy security, expand its natural gas supply, push renewable energy investment, and make heating more affordable. Such an initiative comes from the USAID. To discuss prospects and further steps of this plan, we welcome to our studio today Susan Fritz, Director of the USAID mission in Ukraine, Belarus and Moldova. Hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
So, we're talking about the USAID Energy Security Project in Ukraine. The name is Energy Security Project, so how is it working?
So we just launched the project formally in February, but we started activities last summer. And essentially we're working in, or have the possibility of working in gas, electricity, renewable energy, and district heating to improve those sectors, to help Ukraine to integrate into European markets and the European systems and networks, and to move away from Russia.
Mm-hmm. If we talk about district heating, how to reach this big goal, well, big goal for Ukrainians, how to make heating more affordable?
So the challenge is that there has been underinvestment in district heating in all of the infrastructure for district heating over many years. So it's not an overnight solution, but what we're doing is we're working with both Kyiv City and with Zaporizhia to improve the management of the system, so to create efficiencies in the system to reduce the cost of running the system, but also the management of the companies, to have greater corporate governance of the companies as well, and then really ready the companies for private sector investment in those systems. And so we're on the side of providing technical assistance and training and capacity building to improve the operations, both management and operations, and we're working in partnership with other donors, international financial institutions such as EBRD, to bring in capital resources to invest in the actual infrastructure, which will improve the reliability of service and the capacity of the company to provide services to citizens.
So I see the process is very complex.
Yes.
Well, Surku Bogut, my apologies if I pronounce the name incorrectly, Senior Energy Advisor of the U.S. Agency for International Development, said, I want to quote, this person, the tariff reform is critical for Ukraine's energy security. We're promoting tariff models which ensure affordable, quality energy services for all Ukrainians while enabling investments in critical infrastructure. So what tariff models are you going to promote in Ukraine?
Right. So first of all, it's a very complex topic, and it's also a very sensitive topic, but very important for Ukraine's energy reform and improving the whole system. The idea is that you need to build into the tariff structure resources to invest into the energy infrastructure. And how do you do that? Well, right now there's the tariff structure doesn't do that, and so it's called cost plus, and it doesn't provide the resources to invest in the infrastructure. So by moving to the RAB tariff system and structure, you set up a tariff that includes, first of all, investments already made that haven't been accounted for or paid for. You include new investments that are planned in the infrastructure. You include operating expenses, and you also include the interest that you pay on when you borrow to basically invest in the systems. So that's the RAB tariff structure. What you need to do is also pay attention to what people's ability to pay. So, for example, if the tariff structure or the tariff is too high, citizens won't be able to get the energy that they need to live. Companies won't be competitive because the cost of their products will be too high relative to other countries. So you really need to get that right, but it can't be too low either, because you do need to have resources to invest into the infrastructure so that you're improving the service. And so you've got to build that in. And also, if it's too low, then the government has to provide subsidies to the system that is not really sustainable and it's not able to do. So you really have to, you can't go too high or too low, and you have to really pay attention to people's ability to pay.
To balance.
To balance, exactly. And so you increase as the economy improves and citizens' ability to pay improves, then you start increasing so that we can start investing in the infrastructure and the energy sector.
So you just outlined the right model of building a tariff, a fair tariff for Ukrainian population. Could you please compare it with the current model that we have right now?
So the cost-plus model doesn't do that. It doesn't take into account new investments in the way that a RAB tariff would take into account. I should comment on, because RAB tariff is a dirty word, I think, in Ukraine, because of the previous regulator had introduced a RAB tariff that wasn't fair to consumers. It was actually making them pay twice for infrastructure that was already paid for and depreciated. And that's not right. That's not supposed to be the way the RAB tariff system and structure works. So essentially what we're recommending is a RAB tariff that follows international standards and approaches and really takes into account all the costs associated with running the companies and investing in infrastructure. But also, that's only one piece of the puzzle. The second piece is that utility companies have to come up with network development plans to talk about how what they're going to do to improve the network. And that needs to be approved by the regulator. And so that's the next step in the process. And the companies also have to use a special regulatory accounting system, a unified system of accounts that allows the regulator to be able to audit those companies to make sure that they're spending the money the way they said they were going to spend the money in improving the infrastructure and therefore the services to citizens. Where USAID is helping and can help further is providing the technical expertise, best international standards for creating the RAB tariff, but also capacity building of the regulator. It's important that the regulator is not only independent, but that they're competent and able to do their job. So we're providing capacity building in that regard. We can help companies as they're improving their accounting systems, and also the whole process needs to be transparent. So aid can help in having a process that involves stakeholders and really having consultations in a way that I think hasn't happened before in Ukraine.
Well, this sounds as a great change if it can be implemented, but let's focus on another aspect. We do know that gas tariffs, these heating tariffs, are included into the list of obligations of Ukraine before the IMF, and we do know that people always, there has been a lot of controversy and a lot of attention has been drawn to this aspect because the prices were continuously growing, and now the Ukrainian government agreed on another level of increasing the gas price that the population isn't happy with because people are afraid that they won't be able to survive through the winter. Does this USAID energy security project take this IMF obligations into the account?
So the IMF obligations are really important for Ukraine to maintain its fiscal stability, and so we're 100% behind that. We would not advocate against that. When we're talking about the RAB tariff system, that's for the future, and it's a separate process. So eventually, where it intersects is Ukraine has to have energy prices that reflect the cost of providing that energy. Right now, it doesn't. So Ukraine does need to move in that direction in both cost recovery, and that's included in the RAB tariff system. So it's sensitive, it's difficult. I think as you move forward on the RAB tariff, that the affordability is an important aspect of that process.
Of course, and it's very interesting how Ukraine will be kind of moving between the USAID initiative and this continuous increase of the gas tariffs. But let's shift onto energy security right now. We do know that Ukraine is insecure in its energy sector because of this continuing blackmail from Russia on prices, on amounts of the gas supply, on the conditions of this gas supply. So I understand that probably you can't really comment on politics, maybe.
Right.
So I would ask you a neutral question. What tools does USAID provide Ukraine with so we could enhance Ukraine's energy security?
Okay, so USAID has many tools. One that I think is most pertinent is in the electricity sector. So Ukraine has committed to integrating into the European electricity grid. It sounds simple, but it's not. It requires several steps. And right now what we're doing with Ukraine is working with power companies to test them. We're taking the data from those companies, from that testing, and putting it into models that can help Ukraine to identify weaknesses in the electricity grid that they need to remedy. Once they start making investments and finish making investments in that, then Ukraine can disconnect from the Russian grid. The process involves working independently for some time and then proving to Europe that NSOE that that there's a stable grid with secure supply. And once it's able to do that, at some point in the future, it connects to Europe. That process is a long-term process, very technical. It's an area where aid has experience and is helping and will continue to help Ukraine move forward. And in doing so, it necessarily gives Ukraine more energy security and less reliance on Russia.
So this will provide with more energy security, because I just wanted to ask, what would this change for a regular Ukrainian?
So I think ultimately Ukrainians will see that better service delivery, because what this process does is help to stabilize the grid and in a way that reduces outages and instability within the grid. So the common citizen should see better services over time. And ultimately, I think it also provides more security, knowing that Ukraine doesn't have to rely on Russia, and where it can weaponize energy as a tool against Ukraine. So ultimately, the common man or woman should get better service delivery over time and feel more secure that they're no longer having to rely on Russia.
That would be wonderful. Does this project, this energy security project, has anything to do with the increase of natural gas extraction?
So it's an area where we can provide support. We're not currently providing support. We're watching the purchase sharing agreement process that's going on right now, and we're willing to provide assistance to make it, to improve it, but currently we're not doing that.
Okay. So USAID allocated $85 million for this project, right? For 5 years.
Correct.
The duration is 5 years. As far as I understand, you will fund and monitor the project itself, right?
Right.
But you have to cooperate with some other bodies for this project implementation. Could you please tell us about this?
Sure. So there are a wide range of stakeholders in the energy sector within the Ukrainian government and outside the government. So we have set up with the government a steering committee that will meet at a minimum every 6 months. We had our first meeting a couple of weeks ago. It includes Deputy Foreign Minister Zerkal. It includes Deputy Energy Minister Boyko. It includes the regulator. It includes Deputy Minister of Regional Development. It also will include from time to time various energy sector companies or stakeholders when issues of concern are on the agenda. So the idea is, actually I forgot one very important stakeholder in the process and a member of the committee, MP Dombrovsky of the Energy Committee in the Rada. So these are key people pushing energy reform forward in Ukraine, and partners with us in driving reforms through our support through the Energy Security Project.
Great. And we were talking about the duration, which is scheduled for 5 years. What plans, what concrete plans do you have for this year, 2019?
So I already spoke a little bit about our electricity sector work. I've also spoken about our district heating work. And lastly, the RAB tariff. So these are key areas where we're engaged this year, and I would foresee not only this year, but in future years as well. We are prepared to work in renewables and in the gas sector. And as I mentioned previously, the gas sector is one that right now NAFTA gas is in the unbundling process, and Ukraine needs to decide what model it wants to use for that process. And so once it does, we can come in and provide resources and support if necessary, if there's a need. In terms of renewables, in the renewable sector, there is right now, there's a green tariff that is unsustainable. It makes renewable energy too expensive for the Ukrainian government. There is a new law that's in Parliament right now on the renewable sector, and it will focus on introducing an auction system that for renewable energy that is used in other parts of the world and brings the cost of energy down, renewable energy down. Once that's passed, we can help Ukraine implement it. So we're prepared to do that, as well as to prepare investments, do feasibility studies for various renewable energy projects to advance investment in that sector.
Well, this sounds as a great initiative. Unfortunately, we have to finish this conversation, but thank you so much. And let's see what results will we have from this initiative in the future. And thank you for your contribution to Ukraine's energy security.
Thank you, Ellis.
That was Susan Fritz, Director of the USAID mission in Ukraine, Belarus and Moldova. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Alice Garjuk. Goodbye.